Hey everybody, and welcome back to FigFed News, the new and improved FigFed News for July 9th. That's right, if you were following this, and I've noticed people haven't following this, we have unfortunately had to reset the timer, but I think we've made it a lot more streamlined. So check it out. Hope you enjoy it. Here we go. So it's new and improved. We're now going to have two main shows that will have weekly shows, as well as AEW will have a weekly show. But their Ring of Honor and also Impact will have like bi-weekly shows. Other places will also have like one show a month, and then the WWC only has a grand show once a year. That's pretty much every other style of figure put into like a big like wrestle fest kind of mentality. But however, there's some exclusive changes here. Heat will only have the European Championship exclusive to their show. Um, Thunder will only have the WCW Television Championship exclusive to their show, so you won't see them at pay-per-views or on Nitro or Raw, respectively. They're going to be only on Heat and only on Thunder. Each roster has 50 wrestlers. Now, if someone loses 10 matches in a row without winning a match, they will be fired. Brand Warfare pay-per-view will be 5 or 6 matches to best of series. Losing brands to fire a random wrestler. 64-man King of the Ring tournament, 32 from WWF and 32 from WCW. The final will compete with each other. The winner of that, of course, is safe and will go on to be world title shot in the future. The losing brand, however, though, has to lose somebody at random as well. So potentially two people can be fired from one brand. At the end of the year, the lowest 15 will be fired from each brand and replaced with new wrestlers, and each roster will be restored to 50 each. So um, ECW, NXT, and actually I put that third one, NWA, in there. They all have 20 wrestlers in each brand as well, and they will basically be like the development brand for the WCW and WWF. So the way it works is those brands will be around. People will be picked up from those brands into the next year, and then new people will be drafted into those brands. So um, therefore, if you follow, if you actually enjoy watching this, or if you follow like a certain person, see how they end up, where they end up, you never know. They might have to go through the ECW or the NXT or the NWA program first. So, without further ado, though, let's get started. So, currently there's no WWF champions. Now you're probably wondering where the world title is, the tag titles are, and the Intercontinental. Well, because you can choose different versions of it, I haven't added them in there yet because once I do have a Intercontinental champion crowned, then they will decide what belt looks best on them. But Raw kicks off this week. Finlay would defeat Bobby Lashley by pinfall after Ryder helped distract O'Reilly. O'Reilly would then call out Zack Ryder. Zack Ryder would go on to defeat Kyle, or go on, Zack Ryder would go on to defeat Kyle O'Reilly after Finlay returned the favor. Nunzio defeats Simon Dean by pinfall, and Funaki defeats George Steele by pinfall. The main event would see Ric Flair defeat Roderick Strong by submission. This came about when the Four Horsemen, Wyndham, Blanchard, and Anderson, an Undisputed Era brawled on the outside. WCW champions again. The U.S. title is exclusive to WCW, and so you can also go with the WWE versions of that belt as well. Since I'm just kind of making it that belt exclusive to WCW, as well as the tag titles, I have the new and the old style as well. So they will be added along the way. Even the world title will also could be changed. I have the old school WCW, and I have this version. So, but WCW Nitro kicked off actually with a championship match at the end of the night. Ryback would defeat Kenzo Suzuki by pinfall. Buff Bagwell's debut hype video plays. Shout out to 3XR on that one because I can't wait for that to show up. Rich Swann versus Hideo Itami ends in a time limit draw of only 10 minutes. Bull Buchanan, the Big Boss Man, defeated Tony Atlas and Rocky Johnson by pinfall. Kenny Dykstra would go on to defeat the Great Muta by pinfall after interference from the Spirit Squad. And in the main event, Bill Goldberg wins the 20-man WCW World Heavyweight Battle Royal Championship match. And so Bill Goldberg is the WCW World Heavyweight Champion. Over to Heat, though, as Rob Conway versus Zack Ryder ends in a double countout. Ryder was not actually even a part of the show, but due to a lack of superstars not showing up at this moment of the taping, he actually would interfere. Tully Blanchard defeats $1 Million Man by pinfall. In the main event, would see Chris Masters v. Elias by submission after Elias could not get out of the master lock. Over to Thunder now as Brian Pillman defeats Rene Dupree by pinfall. Lance Cade and Trevor Murdoch would defeat Mitch and Johnny by pinfall. And in the main event, would see Shelton Benjamin secure a victory over Joey Mercury by pinfall. NXT champions again, same thing. I have a few NXT titles, as well as the tag belts, so that will be changing up as well. But there's no show this week for NXT. Here's the ECW champions plus the 24/7 championship, which was just kind of added as a way to round out the brand a little bit. But there's no show for ECW this week. The NWA champions was going to include the United States belt as well, but I decided not to do that. So we've got the NWA television title, the tag titles, and the NWA World Heavyweight Championship. And they did have a show this week. Only 3 matches would take place as Michael Hayes and Terry Gordy defeated the Usos by pinfall. Drew Gulak defeated Sin Cara by submission. And the main event was see Alberto Del Rio defeat Big Show by countout. The AEW champions, very, very many of them. I decided to eliminate the TBS title as of right now. And the Continental is now going to be used as a kind of promotional belt in a different brand. But they held their first pay-per-view All In, and the Acclaim and Orange Cassidy would defeat House of Black for the Trios Championship. Swerve Scott defeats Hook and Darby Allin in a 2 falls, 2 titles match. That's right, to crown champion, Swerve would win the TNT Championship in the first fall, and then would also go on to win the FTW Championship in the second fall, becoming a double champion. Lucha Bros would defeat the Young Bucks by pinfall to win the AEW tag titles. And the main event would see Samoa Joe defeat Kenny Omega, Adam Page, and MJF in 2 falls, 2 title match main event as well. Joe would end up winning the International Championship in the first fall. The secondary belt was on the line first. And Joe would also go around and somehow win the AEW World Championship, so 2 double champions to start the show off. Ring of Honor is also going to be here as well, and that's going to be divided up from the Jazzwares AEW line, so there's only a few handful of guys for that, but they had their Summer Super card as Butcher and Blade defeated Private Party by pinfall to win the tag team titles. Pac defeats Wheeler Yuta by submission to win the Pure Championship. Danhausen and Miro and Taz defeats the Dark Order of Stu Grayson, Evil Uno, and John Silver to win the 6-man tag team titles. Lance Archer defeats Keith Lee in the semi-main event to win the TV title. In the main event, we see Eddie Kingston defeat Brody Lee by pinfall to become the Ring of Honor World Champion. Over to Impact now, and you have your Impact Champion, you have your Grand Champion, which is kind of their secondary belt, and then you have the AEW Continental Championship, which is kind of, again, a promotional little belt crossover. Then you have the Impact Tag titles and the X Division title. And they had their first show, Emergence, as Andrade defeats Sammy Guevara to win the X Division title. Best Friends defeated Ortiz and Santana, and Jack Perry and Killswitch and SCU by pinfall to become the inaugural Impact Tag Team Champions. Wardlow defeats Powerhouse Hobbs by pinfall to become the AEW Continental Champion. Kip Sabian defeated Dustin Rhodes in a great match by pinfall to become the Grand Champion. And Brian Cage defeats Ricky Starks to become the Impact World Champion. On to AAA champions now, as you've got the Mega, you've got the Gift of the Gods, you've got the tag titles. However, there was no show this week for AAA. Red Impact champions, however, there was no show this week for them as well. The UWF champions, no one's been crowned yet, and there was no show for them as well. So here's the World Wrestling Council that will be taking place. These are all the brands. These brands are all in here because they all lack the necessary components of at least 20 to 25 guys in each brand. In fact, some of these are down to like 1 or 2 guys left. So they're really hanging on by a thread. You may see that GFW is gone. That's because Jake Atlas would get drafted in to the Ultimate Division, so only Commander Aziz remains in that brand. So he, along with Mongo McMichaels and Simon Gotch, have all been kind of just moved into a hodgepodge because they are just basically one person left of each style. Of course, TNA Wrestling, that's Jack's TNA Wrestling, and then that's going to be that new Powertown line as well. So that will be a little while to tell. Pro Wrestling Guerrilla is not them. TWE will be Preston Ryder, Ace Evans, and Congo Kong, which have been pre-ordered. You can find those out there in the world. They're like TWE Series X or something like that. So I plan to snag those up as well. Hopefully they don't get delayed and they actually do come out. So these are just brands. So over time, you're going to see people get filled in here. Of course, these won't be defended weekly. You won't be seeing these change very often. But currently, no champions have been crowned for these. The WBS title is still not even currently out yet. Then you get the middleweight belts. There's the United States title. If I do get another version, I might switch over to NWA. But right now, it's staying where it's at. The WWC champions, like the digital champion, the X Division champion. These belts are like just kind of one-off belts. And then the tag titles of each respected brand. Again, these won't be changing hands very often, but they will be defended at the biggest show if possible. That's all for this week. See you next week. Of course, feedback's always welcomed, and make sure to keep checking back. Last I checked, I'm just been so busy making so many ultimates, and I'm doing what's the formula on them, but I'm also thinking I'm gonna do like a 10 a week, just kind of showcase, not show how I made them necessarily, but just show them off because I just got so many and still so many in the pipeline. But hopefully you enjoyed. Feedback welcome as always, and I'll see you next week.